With Ready or Not coming to consoles on July 15th, it looks like they've gone and kicked up some controversy. Now, the first part of this briefing that Void Interactive have put out is just animation changes and, usual stuff. But here's the interesting part. Console rating content changes. Throughout the console port process, we've done our utmost to make only changes where they are flagged as absolutely required by our first-party partners. So it looks like this is going to be on Sony and Microsoft and the rating system, and not Void Interactive, which many people are saying that it's Void's fault, when really to put their game on console they need to, of course, comply with the requirements. And any changes aim to remain faithful to the original tonality of the game, so there is no reason to be alarmed. Now that part, we'll get into the new reviews where people aren't so happy with that in a minute. Our age rating as it stands for console is ESRB-M rating, so mature, PEGI 18 and USK 18 to give an idea. So basically this is a adult's game, so why are they censoring it? Okay, it's an 18 rated game. You can't handle the gore, don't play it. Why are we censoring this? Still, there are other game content requirements that console platforms have in order to exist on their systems, and a portion of these changes will be visible on the PC version. So, of course, crossplay is going to be a thing with Ready or Not. And, as they said, they can't do a change to just the console version, it has to come to the PC version as well. So it will change on people who have already bought and paid for the game. And I think that's where people are kind of pissed off with it. If a content change was just a texture swap, we were able to apply it to console only while keeping the PC version the same as before. However, if the change is transforming an entire asset, like adding clothing to a character model, this was less feasible. There are two main reasons that these limited asset changes may be visible on the PC version as well. Maintaining multiple versions of the game with different assets and system mechanics increases the likelihood of bugs to occur in future updates, and subsequent challenges keeping the game updated across multiple versions. Think lighting or optimization issues, for example, or any number of unexpected bugs from maintaining different versions. 2. If the in-game assets were not the same, it would make crossplay unusable. The game content must be equal or basically equal for multiplayer to work. Different versions of assets affect multiplayer replication, which is the ability for the server to understand what's happening in-game and host players in the same lobby/server. Dismemberment, aka gore. Player-induced dismemberment still has a large presence in the game, but is a little more limited to when it occurs. When alive, enemies are shot, they can undergo dismemberment. However, once they are dead, no further dismemberment occurs. Note, the level of dismemberment itself, when it occurs, was not actually toned down. So basically, you can't do anything to suspects' corpses. You can still, shoot them when they're alive, and the damage will show up. Unfortunately, we consider this an okay compromise, considering our gameplay design already dissuades use of lethal force anyway. Image below, a single image showing how the dismemberment currently looks in our development build and will look for all platforms of the game post-console release, none of which has been toned down. A shotgun headshot, horrifying as ever. Lastly, some character art involving torture were turned down slightly to be less over the top. For example, the tortured police informant on Narcos is still missing fingers, eyes, and covered in fresh wounds and blood, but a little less so. But at the same time, wasn't that kind of this game's big selling point? That it didn't tone this stuff back? Nudity. Some instances of explicit nudity for a handful of civilians and one suspect. Gerard's ghillie suit only scantily concealed himself, have been covered up a bit more. So again, it's an M-rated game. It's not like they're trying to go for a teen rating on Xbox, or well, console, sorry. Explicit representations of violence / mistreatment against children. Although we already make a substantial effort to present mistreatment against children in the game in a responsible way, we made slightly thematic expansions of this philosophy in order to better meet certification standards. So again, this is what they need to do to get the release on console, not necessarily they're doing it for the sake of it. For example, the child on Twisted Nerve has had an animation change to be unconscious and sleeping, instead of the previous convulsive animation from before that had a violent appearance. The changes with the console version are small enough that most people here wouldn't notice if we didn't say anything, but we want to be transparent. It's largely just evidence and nudity that's altered, and the texture changes don't affect the PC version. Console content changes. Conclusion. The textures on the console are just small things that make the evidence in levels like hints that connect with other evidence is rather something practical than screaming this is illicit child stuff happening. However, the player can easily connect the dots based on the other evidence in the level. But again, that was this game's big selling point, that it didn't tone the stuff back and just told it how it was. So why are they turning the stuff back now? And there's apparently evidence that they are deleting some of the bad reviews that they're getting now for doing this. So if that is, which I don't have proof of that, but if that is true, it's not a good look for them. This is probably one of the more extreme examples from the streamer level. Left side is PC version of the game and will remain as such. So this change is console only. It can stay the same on PC. Right side is console version of the game. There is still a bunch of other evidence in the room that connects to show what's going on. So you've got the PC version and the new console version. Conclusion, we look forward to our console launch and relieved to be fully finished with our console launch certification processes. So again, like I said, this is more the doing of Sony and Microsoft and the certification that they need to release the game on console than it is Void themselves wanting to change this stuff. We were fortunate enough as a team to pass our certification for the launch on our first submission. Certifying in such a manner is relatively rare in the industry, let alone for a team who has not went through this process together before. And we extend a massive thanks to our Void team and all our partners who helped completing this process possible. We hope you enjoy the new weapons, animations, difficulty system, levels and other great content that Los Sueños Stories console launch will offer next month. We maintain our focus to bringing this gritty tactical experience to the wider gaming audience, true to its spirit. Except you just censored a lot of it. And then this concludes the briefing. So, based off what I've seen in reviews and YouTube comments on other videos, people, well, the majority of people aren't too happy with Void on this one. But again, this is more done by the, well, Microsoft and Sony, the people evaluating them to let the game launch on their consoles. But again, Void have been caught deleting reviews and threads on Steam discussing this. Again, I don't have proof of it, I'm just a reporter, but if that's true, that really does not make it look good on them. So we're likely going to see another instance of a company that, well, goes on a downfall, was seen as good at first, and then just fades off. Because if we go into the reviews here on Steam, disappointed in the content censorship for PC version of the game due to the upcoming console versions being released. This review will stand as negative until the censorship is removed. 163 found the review helpful, and that was posted when the briefing was posted. So yeah, people aren't too happy with Void. Potential customers beware. Do not buy this game. Do not support a company like Void Interactive. This game wasn't perfect initially, but now they are choosing to censor it. They made their money from you, the PC players on Steam, and now out of sheer greed, they're appeasing console market regulators by censoring the game to meet their demands. He's not wrong. That is basically what they're doing. Because I mean, PC players have a right to be angry. They bought a product and now they're changing it, which I guess is the problem with live service games. But still, it's kind of off, isn't it? Especially if, like I say, if any of this deleting stuff is true, that just makes it tenfold worse. Do not buy, in fact boycott it until they undo the censorship. I don't find, that's an old one. 28th of June. No too much censorship just because of the console launch. PC players suffer just because of the console launch. From leaving their publisher due to teasing a school shooting level in 2021 to now turning down and censoring content already in the game for a mere console release. Void Interactive, sellouts to both Sony and Xbox. I mean, yeah, he has every right to feel that way. Like I say, they're putting these changes in to appease the console regulators, and of course PC players, you know, don't get refunds, or the option to get refunds I should say, at this point, which I've seen that in a lot of YouTube comments where people are saying that if they make changes and censor games, refunds should be offered, which again, fair enough, you have the right to feel that way, because it is a shitty thing to do, to be fair. The game is good, the censorship is not. Do not buy. First it releases 2 DLCs to a very bare bones games. Now Void is censoring the game retroactively after years from release. Censorship because of a console release nobody asked for. Well, I think console players have been waiting for a while. The game sacrifices the best part of its experience, the immersion. True, like I said, that's the game's big selling point, that's why it got so popular. Because it didn't tone back stuff. And it just did it how it was. Censoring key elements like the nudity, child abuse and gore only result is cleaner, less stomach turning scenery, which made RON special. Yeah. Because again, I mean, we're toning this stuff back, but again, we have mass shooter levels, for crying out loud. So, yeah, there are still bad things in the game, but they're removing some of the core elements to the lore and that. Which I know there's a big market for on some YouTube channels, and there was, to be fair, I actually watched one of the lore series on it, and quite entertaining. Because it does go deeper than you think. So what you see as a little change to the sort of continuation of the story can be a bigger change than it looks on the surface. Void Interactive is censoring the game to appeal to the unwashed console audiences. I bought and supported the game mostly because of its authenticity, even though the performance and balance issues were abundant. Now I cannot recommend it, as some of the more interesting edges that made it stand out are being sanded down. Void Interactive, Delenda S. Okay, it's not important to the review. Removing the gritty nature by having the PC version match the more censored console version. The gritty nature of the game is what is what was marketed to PC players and should not be taken away like this. Yeah. Again, like I keep saying, they're just censoring the PC version when it doesn't really need to be. I mean, if the crossplay was that big of a deal, I mean, there's sure to be a lot of sales on consoles, as they wouldn't be releasing it to consoles. There's already a big market for PC. If it was that big of a deal, just don't do crossplay. Censoring a game on PC instead of just censoring the console plebs version will no longer be supporting and buying further DLCs for the game, while not offering refunds for censoring. I was not sold a product censored. Yeah, again, remember, this isn't some free game that you can just install free and play it. This is a paid game with paid DLC. Censorship due to console release is not acceptable. No to censorship just because of the console launch. PC players suffer just because of the console launch. You bent the knee to the minority of people who probably spent like 5 minutes playing the game. Censorship will not be tolerated. Yeah, true. No to censorship just because of the console launch. PC players suffer just because of the console launch. It's a petty reason, but here goes. They're adding censorship. I hate that. This game deals with a school shooting scenario, an attempted assassination, and a child trafficking and human trafficking, and a CP ring, and executions and homicides. But Void went down and started sucking Sony's. I'm sure you can guess what that would say. And decided to pander to whatever Daddy Stock Shares decides. The DLC that are overpriced for what you get, I can forgive. But if you can't help but make something as small as gore, blood and nudity, then I'll keep this dislike up until you change that. FU Microsoft and FU Sony. Here's the censorship list. That's just going to be a paste of what I just read. Yep. Time to review bomb. Softening of core themes. Broken uncompromising realism promise. So yeah, they are essentially breaking the realism. Censoring the game for a console release. Reducing gore / dismemberment. Nudity, the dark storyline behind some of the missions. Seriously disappointed. They should leave PC players out of their console age certification BS. The game has lost its atmosphere due to the censorship, just to appease the console players, just to create a separate console version. Well, yeah, that's what I just said a minute ago. If it's that big of a deal, just don't do the crossplay thing. Censoring a game after a 1.0 release because it's releasing on consoles should be grounds for a refund. No to censorship, bad move. Not a fan of the new changes. Self-censoring in the pursuit of more money isn't a good look on either chief. I didn't pay for a gritty SWAT game just for it to be censored. Yeah. Imagine buying a game with the faith that it'll improve over time, only for it to get censored years later for a release on a platform that you don't even play on. The changes themselves aren't major. Even if I do believe they hurt the realism of the game, it's more so the fact that the developers are downplaying any negative sentiment and telling people to just deal with it, despite the fact that PC players get zero benefit out of this, only content removal and lack of choice. Yeah. With the deal with it part of that, there was a comment I saw on a different YouTube video where it was of a thread on, I can't remember if it was Steam or X, where the devs essentially told someone who asked about the censorship and if they could restore it on PC, and they essentially told him, deal with it, the closest you're going to get is if a mod comes out to do it. Yeah, from the look of it, all of these are going to be censorship. Doesn't look like anyone's happy with it, because these are just the top reviews. So the major sentiment is, you know, the censorship is bad, they shouldn't have done it just to bend the knee to the console players, which is, you know, kind of the point why I'm making this video. It's not my usual style of video to make, but I'm just sick of just these big companies deciding to just tear the content out that people have paid for. These companies just bend the knee to any so-called gaming journalist or console rating like this, which all this could just be fixed by just not doing the crossplay part. And yeah, maybe the console version you'll lose a couple of sales, boo-hoo, but it's not like this is some tiny game that no one knows about. You know, there's videos on this game with millions of views. It's not like this niche game that needs the funding, because if you release it on console, there's obviously going to be a market for it for players that do only have a console and not a PC, or at least not a PC that can run the game. And you know, why do we need the crossplay if it's just gonna make the PC players not play it anyway? Right? Disappointed in the content censorship for the PC version of the game due to the upcoming console versions being released. This review will stand as negative until the censorship is removed. Yeah, people are just downvoting the hell out of the game now. And it's just because of the censorship, not necessarily because they've done something that makes the gameplay itself terrible. Just because they've walked back the game being this authentic shooter that doesn't sugarcoat it and shows things realistically. Yeah, these are on the Steam review page if you want to read through all of them. But we've been here for nearly 25 minutes now. I think that should cover pretty much everything. Like I say, don't spend money on this game until they sort this censorship thing out. Maybe it means that we won't get crossplay. If that's the casualty, oh well. People have the right to be mad because, again, they paid for a product and they've censored said product. They have a right to be pissed off, they have a right to want a refund. So, yeah, that's all I got for you today. Rant over, do all the usual stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and peace out.